Good morning. You're listening to Guiding Stars, Evolutionary Astrology Radio. This is your host, Kristin Fontana. I'm here with Rose Marcus from Vancouver, Canada, to discuss the transits for the next month, end of May and into June 2020. Welcome back, Rose.
Thank you very much, Kristin.
And we just had a new moon in Gemini not too long ago, so we are recording this live today. That's really nice. So 2020, you know, I read somewhere that it's a wash. And oh my gosh, and it kind of was just really feeling true. We've got this new moon in Gemini that just occurred, and it is squaring, well, actually no, Venus and Mercury are conjunct. Venus is retrograde in Gemini, and they are squaring Neptune. So that can feel like, oh gosh, I don't know. In my life, it just seems like good news, bad news, good news, bad news. I can't even keep up with it all. So that just feels like the times right now. Anything that you would like to share with the listeners before we get going?
No, nothing special, just carrying on, and I'm still available for sessions, and same as usual.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just, it seems like, I've shared this, I think, in my newsletter. My son is a senior in high school, and they were hoping to do their graduation in July, and the governor in Oregon said no groups over 100, so things just keep getting canceled. It's like,
well, for us here too, it's the school thing. School is on. No, school is off. No, school is on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's remote. No, it's live. It's hard for these kids, and I think, you know, like I've shared before, there's just not a soul on this planet that's not impacted in some way by it, and I've talked to a lot of people that actually love it. So they love it from the standpoint that life has slowed down, not because anybody's suffering, of course, or anything like that, but just that everything just dials back, and you're brought not only into your home, but into your inner home to take a deeper look around. So with the world opening up a bit, I know in my town, stores are starting to open. They're all practicing this social distancing, and I feel like Ashland's doing a great job along these lines. For the most part, there's always those stragglers. I mean, you look at them cross-eyed, like, what are you doing? You know, let's all do our part here. And so, anyway, it's an odd time. It's a weird time. And I would say in some ways it's a wash, but in other ways it's teeming with life, my goodness.
Yeah,
it is absolutely so much. I mean, there's so much going on. There's so much that can be going on in other ways, and that's it, getting creative with the time. So.
Yeah, and those in those kind of chaotic moments or those uncertain moments is when there is the greatest potential to create something. And, you know, we have all those, Pluto's still in Capricorn, Jupiter's in Capricorn, and Saturn and Pallas Athena are going back into Capricorn again. That's all about the fear and resistance factor. And you know, we have so much today with this new moon squaring Neptune, so much that we can't see, right? You know,
right.
And there's two levels of that when you can't see it. If you can't see it, then you may not think it's there. Or on the other hand, if you can't see it, you have fear, right? You know,
right.
And either one of those positions are maybe a misjudgment, right? You know, just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it does not exist, and I mean that in terms of potentials that could be wonderful. You know, the fear base, you know, again, I think that we have rampant paranoia on the planet, right? You know, and that's not a good thing because, you know, whenever you're in fear, you know, you're anticipating something. You know, I also practice the tarot, right? And there's a card in the tarot where I always say that why don't you wait there to have the emotion on it, right? Because the anxiety piece precedes. You know, if there's fear, there's anxiety. And if you have fear and anxiety, that's feeding a certain engine, right? You know, it keeps fueling that. and there's no end to fear and anxiety. And you know how you do that? You know, if you're anticipating something and then it turns out not to be true, oh my God, it's brilliant when that doesn't happen and something better takes place, right?
Yeah.
You know? And what a waste of energy there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there are things we can't, you know, life is never certain, life is never absolute. And we proceed often in terms, that's what gives us our security. You know, tomorrow's going to be the same as yesterday. Great, you know, I can keep going this way. Well, that's a projection as well, too, right? You know, so there's so many different levels to our reality. And now that we are, that idea of 2020 being canceled or, a non-starter or so on, it is business as usual that is not taking place. But there is so much potential right where you are to live it differently, and I think that's what once we stop the resistant factor here and just pull back for a moment, it's what I say is always the meditation piece. It's breath out, breath in, breath out, breath in. And when we get to that pause moment, that's when we're at one with a universal source, right? That's when we can create. If we stop that kind of resistance factor, that back and forth, that kind of franticness of emotions that we don't know where to place them, and just stop and say, I can't figure this out right now, so I'll just pause here. It provides a margin there for something new and fresh to come in.
A great way to put it. The pause is creating a margin, and it's creating a space that couldn't be there otherwise when you're filling it with worry. Neptune connects also to, and another word for it would be the unknown, right? So I think you said the fear of what you cannot see, but it's, not. There are a lot of things that nobody can control right now, and that's where the surrender has to happen. Mars is in Pisces as well, which is ruled by Neptune. And although, I have to say, I love the sextile to Uranus this weekend. So, I heard yesterday that, there's always a way. That's what Uranus says. Okay, well, it may not look like that, but it could look like this. It's like coming in the side door, back door, and I read yesterday that they're actually coming up with masks that can, like, a light goes on if you're anywhere near the virus or something. I can't remember. And then not only that, like, okay, so if you can't figure out how to make a vaccine, let's figure out how to, it really feels like Star Trek a little bit. But anyway, let's figure out how to not take it in, right? So in addition, trying to create some kind of fabric in the mask that kills the virus on contact. So while we are working to try and come up with a vaccine or trying to figure out how to nail this thing, which, it's so intelligent, it's, as it mutates, it becomes even more difficult to understand. It will as time goes on. That's what flus do as well, but nothing like this. But if we can create something for the time being that can alert people in one way or another, that would be very Uranian and very awesome. Just so people can just relax a little bit, like when you don't feel like you're safe, or that's the thing about Pisces energy or Neptune energy. It's like it's so sort of in the air. It's sort of in the when you think of a fog, it just kind of filters everywhere. You don't really know how to contain whatever it is that you're worrying about, or not able to recognize something if it is in the world. But this Mars-Uranus sextile this weekend, Mars is in Pisces, Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus has to do with what's going on here on Earth, the material world, really, the physical world. There's just some kind of breakthrough energy this weekend that I see, which is, an opportunity for you personally, whether it's in terms of things that are discovered and breakthroughs on that level. Because this chart that we look at is not only a collective signature, it's a personal signature as you overlap it to your chart. So just wanted to mention that. In addition, this new moon is trining Saturn today. That is a stabilizing force. So any thoughts about those things? I was just rolling around.
Well, it is a new moon in Gemini, and things are mobilizing, right? So we're seeing a lot of energy out there. Things are opening up. The stock market's going crazy right now. There's lots happening. So we have good, and the trine to Saturn and so on. Yes, so this is good for stabilizing and mobilizing, right? So things can start to move along, good energy. And the new moon today in Gemini, the transiting nodes, the north and south nodes of the moon here have just moved as of the beginning of May. The south node into Sagittarius and the north node into Gemini. So the new moon is picking up that north node energy. Again, there's great opportunity right now to get going on something. I have to say, this whole week, I feel like I've been lost in space, all that Neptune energy is like I'm trying really hard to get focused, and I'm distracted by everything, and I think as we see this new moon moving along, we'll be able to get on to next. And I was just going to say this, with all this Neptune energy, and Mars is in the sign of Pisces through the end of June. Part of the beauty of astrology is, I always say, knowing where on the wheel you sit. And right now, let's just agree that we are moving through some uncertainty. That there is a nebulousness, that we can't nail it all down right now. Sometimes for me, just even knowing that, okay, well, fine, I can't figure it out right now, even that can allow you to just pull back in a way that can be diffusing, and that can be, you can be okay with it. Wherever you sit on the wheel, you can be okay with it, so long as I know right now I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's something about trying to control something that you can't that creates this added pressure and just a challenge to be in the body. That by just letting go and saying, you know what, Neptune does connect to sort of that bigger picture perspective. Somebody else has a much better view of things than I do right now. And so there is something very freeing about that. I'm kind of throwing, how did I say, just giving it to God, so to speak, my mom would have said.
Yeah, surrendering, It's a terrible story, but I'll mention this. When I was a teenager, it was wintertime, and I was driving on the highway at night in the country, right? I was coming back home after an evening out, and there was just sheer ice on the highway, and I was losing control of the car, and there was another car coming towards me. And I had been, at that point, trying to steer, control the car. That's like on an icy road, right? Near impossible, right? And I had actually had a tea leaf reading some time before that said something about, you're going to be, this situation was going to happen. Don't worry, you'll be fine. And I remembered those words. And so after trying to control for a while, I finally, it took great courage for me to do this, but I took my hands off the steering wheel because I was not doing a good job, and it looked like I was going straight for that car. And, I missed that car. The car spun out of control. It ended up in the ditch, and everybody was fine.
Oh, my gosh.
And I always remember that moment of, that fear, and recognizing that I had absolutely no control, so I had to give it up.
Second ice, forget it, right?
Yeah, I mean, a dramatic example of that, but there are times when you just have to relinquish, right?
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, Jesus, take the wheel.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, that just sounds very much like Venus and Mercury. Venus retrograde, conjunct Mercury, in Gemini squaring Neptune. Story right there. That is it in a nutshell.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, that Venus and Mercury today, that's a pretty interesting combination. And I believe that they don't join forces again until December. But, and...
Really?
Yeah. And we have to talk about the Venus retrograde, of course, because we're in Venus retrograde. But, so Venus is retrograde in Mercury, and Mercury is in the sign of Mercury right now, which makes it very...
I mean Gemini.
Sorry, Gemini, I meant to say that. Thank you. And so that's messages, right? What messages... when you tune in, like it's a really good day for some meditation, it's a good day to go looking for synchronicities and, messages from the universe, whether you spot something while you're out for your walk, and I hope everyone is doing that, getting some fresh air, someplace that is, socially safe. Is the phone ringing? What kind of message do you hear from your inner consciousness, or what kind of synchronicities are giving you a message today? It would be a day to have a talk with somebody if you've been thinking about it, or to sit down and to think about plans and how they might need to be revised, or so on. So it is a good day to stay alert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything can happen with this combination. It's just, I think about all the outer planets, or I shouldn't say all, I would definitely say all of them are in fact just part of this little turn, because we've got this new moon in Gemini trining Saturn. It's in Aquarius. The early degrees. Saturn rules, transiting Pluto in Capricorn and Jupiter in Capricorn. And then we've got Uranus, another outer planet, sextiling Mars. And in EA, we talk about Mars being that lead point in your evolution, that choice-making planet. It's showing you something new. It's showing you something potentially unexpected, surprising that you didn't see coming or possible before. And then, of course, I just mentioned the Saturn piece. So it's Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, all very actively involved, and Neptune, of course. And Neptune not really in our favorite of ways, but nevertheless, it's part of this. So, to me, there's so much available, so much energy available to do something with, and
the orchestra is playing together.
Wow. Yeah, there are a lot of instruments.
Yeah, but they're all on the same page, and it is interesting because Venus retrograde and Mars are in that 90-degree angle, the square alignment here. And it is giving an opportunity for a revision on something, or re-envisioning on something. Mars is also aligned with Ceres. Tomorrow will come conjunct, or over the next couple of days will come conjunct. Ceres is traveling through Pisces as well, too. And Ceres has so many different... it's a very rich archetype. One, it is... there's a lot of grief on the planet. Ceres has been activated all year, but additionally, Ceres is the goddess of the grain and the goddess of the harvest, and I always think that she represents kind of a new season for the soul, right? So that Mars triggering that Ceres here has an opportunity to resume or resurrect or rebirth something. And these planets are allowing for a kind of an unlocking of another phase, another chapter, another facet of whatever it is that you might be working your way through right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that series connecting to a new season. And it is feeling that way. Of course, we're approaching summer in the northern hemisphere, winter in the south, but it does feel like a new season's on its way. So you can consider that emotionally a new season for your soul, you said. So it's a period of transition, too, as we we'll be talking also about the eclipses coming up after the break.
Find out about Kristin Fontana and get your free weekly astrological forecast on her website, KristinFontana.com. Read articles written by the founder of Evolutionary Astrology, Jeffrey Wolf Green. Evolutionary astrology is a spiritual perspective astrology from Pluto's point of view, and what a view it is. You can even order a detailed personalized chart that tells you about your past, present, and future. You'll also discover where and when Kristin's upcoming conferences, workshops, and appearances will be on KristinFontana.com. That's KRISTIN Fontana.com.
Shh. Over here. Here's a secret for a virus-free computer. ESET. They've been a pioneer in the antivirus industry for over 25 years. 25 years of innovative, top-rated antivirus protection. ESET's award-winning security solutions provide a safe online experience for over 100 million home and business computer owners. They are so affordable, fast, and simple to use. So be gone, you blue screen of death. ESET's on my computer. If it's not on yours, visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on ESET now.
iHome Audio has become the #1 brand in the iPod, iPhone accessories market. Visit the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and click on iHome Audio now.
What would happen if you didn't follow the established path? Would you feel scared or proud? Could you explain that helping the people of Peru improve their own community would also have an effect on your own? Would you rather make your own way or spend a lifetime saying, what if? Life is calling. How far will you go? Peace Corps. To find out more, call 1-800-424-8580 or go to peacecorps.gov.
I'm William Shatner, and this is Jimmy. Animals like Jimmy are often left behind by people fleeing hurricanes, fires, floods, and earthquakes. These abandoned animals cannot survive on their own. If you must evacuate your home, please never leave an animal behind. If you absolutely cannot take your animal with you, never leave him helplessly chained or caged. Many animals die because they cannot escape fires or rising waters. Animals need your help. Thank you.
Call PETA today, 757-622-PETA. Okay, so you see a product you like on your favorite TV show, and you're going to write the number down. But if you're like me, you run around trying to find that pen and piece of paper, which magically disappears every time you need them. Then when you get back to the TV, they're already on to something else. Well, now there's a solution. Seen on TV products have combined all the best TV offers online and in one place. It's one-stop shopping. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on the Seen on TV products. Then, who cares if that pesky pen or paper does a disappearing act?
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
All right, we are back. I'm here with Rose Marcus discussing the transits for the end of May and June, and we are live today. Hooray. New moon in Gemini, lots of energy, and just before we jumped back on here live on the break, we were talking about Venus retrograde, which it's the rarest planet it's the planet that goes retrograde It's the longest in between cycles. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
it's the least common.
Yeah, the least common, the most infrequent. Yes. Venus has a retrograde cycle. It takes the retrograde cycle once every 18 months. Mm-hmm. That cycle is a 9-month cycle. So we have 9 months of a superior conjunction with the Sun, and we have 9 months of an inferior. Superior conjunction means it is Earth, Sun, and Venus, and an inferior conjunction is Earth, Venus, and Sun, right, how they line up in that way. Mm-hmm. Venus, because it's one of the inner planets, its orbit, it's very close to the Sun, so it can't form an opposition. That superior conjunction is sort of like, on an idea level, conceptual level. You can think about it like a full phase Venus, but in actuality, the Sun and Venus are together. So Venus turned retrograde on the 12th the 12th of May, and it stays retrograde, I forgot now, I think until about the 25th of June.
24th of June?
24th of June, thank you. And it is retrograde in the sign of Gemini, as we said a moment ago. And this is pretty important as well, too, to note. So first of all, a retrograde planet, any retrograde planet is a revisit, relive. And when we have Venus, we're talking about reevaluating something. Venus is the planet of what has value and meaning. And it is also, as we say, we have an inner side of Venus and an outer side of Venus. The inner side of Venus is that psychology of inner hearing. So it is about tuning in. And when you tune in, what are you hearing inside of you? You know, what are you resonating with, right? So that Venus retrograde is a time to take a little bit of time for yourself, as we were saying before the break with Neptune and so forth. You know, take a pause here to create some stillness. To, you know, any retrograde is a pull back archetype here. So take a step back on yourself. Take the time to to review, to think about things. You know, it's Gemini. You know what are you perceiving, and is there some other thought that is clamoring for your attention? You know, is there some other kind of impression that is wanting for you to have, wanting to have more attention from you? You know, give this some space so that you can listen to what it is that the inner guidance wants to convey to you, right? Mm-hmm. And also, Gemini again is going to when it's in retrograde, you know, that's key people, key circumstances, key events. You know, so Gemini is going to put the attention on something specific and key, and it can be a particular individual. Again, here it might be a friend, a sibling, it can be any of that kind of stuff. Gemini, anything under the Gemini rulership. It could be time to go back to some information that you have discarded, or some project, or some study that you have been waylaid on or put aside, something that you can bring out again that will be relevant to you right now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It could be something that, it's like, an example would be maybe you started writing a book, at some point in time, and you just had to shelve it for some reason, and too much other stuff going on, too much on your plate, and now there's some time or some space to re-enter that world of writing, or to recover that manuscript, and maybe there's more within you to say. It would be just one example of many. Maybe you're an artist and you go back to that easel. Maybe you're a musician and you go back to that sheet of music. And because this Venus retrograde, Venus has to do with what holds meaning on Earth, of value and meaning. It's like what tastes good, sounds good, feels good, from an earthly perspective. It's the ruler of Taurus, and it's that food in your belly, roof over your head, and then what feels good in your relationship, the embrace by somebody you love or from someone you love. And so when Venus is retrograde, we are reviewing, what is it that holds meaning and value to me now, and is that relationship really still working, and am I getting my needs met, and if not, what am I going to do to change that? Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, and that is what holds ultimate meaning, which can only really be found within, through your connection to something more eternal, what you call God. And so when you see Venus and Neptune squaring, even now with this Venus retrograde, it's going to remind you that, the thing that will allow for that experience of wholeness or holiness cannot be found outside of yourself. And so there can be adjustments that need to be made, or refocus on more meditation or yoga or walks in nature, and really creating space in your life to have more of that higher experience. And for sure, when we see a Venus retrograde, you're going to address the things that you need in your life, and if they're not working, then make those changes. I mean, we've got Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, and so, this is like new chapter energy long term. It's a slow, progressive pursuit, but that's what's in place right now.
Yes, absolutely. And, Venus, because it took a retrograde on May 12th, it was the beginning of May when Venus and Neptune had their first square, and we are right today on the second square, so it's been the whole month of May that program has been going, so that's an interesting one. And any retrograde cycle, and first of all, Venus retrograde dials up the karmic unfinished business of relationship, right? So that's a very important cycle. And when it comes to Gemini, if you don't re-meet with that person you will review in memory, so you can go backwards there. All of a sudden it's like, I hadn't thought about that person in a while. Why am I thinking about them now? It's because of that Venus retrograde. And of course, we have that Mercury right there as well too. So there's still a little bit more for me to process in terms of, dialing up that memory pool, whatever that might have been. I have a lot more to say, and I heard that the call for the break, so maybe I'll stop the thought that I was. And, Kristin, you want to add something to that?
Oh, no, just that, I'd like that you mentioned that you may not literally reconnect with someone, but you may be walking down memory lane plenty
yes,
in the next several weeks. All right, we'll be right back.
See straight and save. These days, everyone seems to see things differently. But from your eyes, you can see straight and save. Right now, get glasses online at 70% off at Glasses USA. There's a 100% guarantee, too, on top brand men, women, multifocal, and even prescription sunglasses. Visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Glasses USA, and you will see straight and save.
Find out about Kristin Fontana and get your free weekly astrological forecast on her website, KristinFontana.com. Read articles written by the founder of Evolutionary Astrology, Jeffrey Wolf Green. Evolutionary Astrology is a spiritual perspective astrology from Pluto's point of view, and what a view it is. You can even order a detailed, personalized chart that tells you about your past, present, and future. You'll also discover where and when Kristin's upcoming conferences, workshops, and appearances will be on KristinFontana.com. That's KRISTIN Fontana.com.
Have you ever wondered why you are here on this planet and what the point to all of this is? Evolutionary astrology is a natural science that allows for an understanding of the evolutionary journey of the soul from life to life. Evolutionary astrology provides a vehicle to understand prior life dynamics that have led to the reason and purpose for the life you live. It offers a depth of information and insights about each person that no other type of astrology can provide. As Jeffrey Wolf Green, the founder of Evolutionary Astrology, says,
for those who wish to unveil the depth of who you actually are, I would highly recommend that you seek out qualified evolutionary astrologers such as Kristin Fontana and other graduated students at the School of Evolutionary Astrology. For those who are considering becoming an astrologer to make it a natural career, I'd recommend that you consider Jeffrey Wolf Green's School of Evolutionary Astrology, where it will assist you in answering and your clients answering a big question. Why am I here? Thanks for listening. God bless.
To get your message out, social media is great. But if you want to be picked up by major media outlets, let's face it, just using social media makes your chances, well, slim to none. If you want to improve your chances, put your message in the right place. A press release on PR Web. Affordable, easy to use, and with great customer service, there's no reason not to use PR Web. Visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on PR Web now and get started.
There's hundreds of fun and simple things you and your family can do to live a healthier lifestyle. Here's 20 of them. Eat less, eat slower, eat smarter, eat your fruits and veggies. Stop eating before you're full. Up your fiber, lower your calories, get off the bus early, do some gardening, do jumping jacks, take the stairs, take one, not two, take on a new sport, take a long walk home, walk instead of drive, bend, stretch, reach for the stars, climb the monkey bars, skip the fudge bars. Search We Can online to find more ways you and your family can get healthy together. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
All right, we are back. I'm here with Rose Marcus discussing the transits for June 2020 and some of May here too. We wanted to mention that Venus will retrograde all the way back to 5 degrees of Gemini. So if you know where all your planets are, you can kind of track that. And in the middle of this wild retrograde, we will have a Mercury retrograde in the middle in the middle of June, and we will have a pair of eclipses in June, a third one in July. I don't even know how we're going to be able to cover all this.
We may not be able to. So I wanted to say something about the Venus retrograde cycle, okay? And so, as I was saying, a retrograde cycle is that planet's relationship with the sun, right? And on June 3rd, we will have Venus retrograde conjunct the sun. And that is an inferior conjunction. Whenever Venus retrograde is conjunct the sun, we're at inferior conjunction or interior conjunction, and that starts a whole new 9-month cycle in terms of relating and relationships and evaluating and creating in that way. So between now and then, although we have this new moon today and we are mobilizing and, this is a start point, we're still in this kind of transition point here between now and that June 3rd of completing whatever that kind of evaluation is or what that trip down memory lane or any of those kinds of things. So watch that kind of transition up until, the start of the month. And we'll have Mercury conjoined with the North Node on like the 28th, 29th of May. So the last few days of May and the first week of June are really potent. They're infused with dynamic energy. Why? Because, first of all, that Venus retrograde's in Gemini. It's picking up the energy of the North Node, which is, and I always call it a toolkit for moving yourself forward. Mercury is also in the sign of Gemini, giving more energy to that toolkit for moving yourself forward. On the 3rd, when Venus has a very regular orbit, and it moves in a pattern of the 5-pointed star or the Rosetta pattern here. So it's going to visit the retrograde placements every 8 years. It's going to trigger that. Now, this particular conjunction of Venus retrograde and the Sun on the 3rd of June is also very, very close to the Venus transits that we had June 8th of 2024, and more importantly, I think, June 5th of 2012. A Venus transit happens once every, I've forgotten now, 100 and something years. A Venus transit is like an eclipse of Venus and the Sun. We don't see it as an eclipse because of Venus's proximity to the Sun. It just appears like a tiny dot across the face of the Sun, but it is actually an eclipse. And these eclipses are very, very, very potent. So in my estimation, what happened, we had these two, and they happen in an 8-year proximity, and then they're gone for like another 100 and something years, right? So that 2004 and 2008, the actual degrees here have like 17, 18 of Gemini and 15 of Gemini, and the one coming up on June 3rd of 13 and a half Gemini. if you have planets at any of those degrees, you're going to be picking up this energy particularly strongly. But the whole point of that is that I'm looking at this June 3rd transit as a cycle that was in effect from 2012 to 2020 in terms of Venus, relationship, net worth, self-worth. It's the materialization here we've been through. And you might think back, that 2012 to 2020 has been a very, very potent time. Why? Because we've had the Pluto-Uranus transit that timetable has encompassed. And Venus is a manifesting archetype here, as you said, on Earth, right? So that's an incredibly potent cycle, and I invite everyone to kind of think, what has been going on for you in terms of the way you've been evaluating your essential needs. What have you been hearing inside of you? What's the heart speak? What relationship evolution has been going on for you? How have you been manifesting? What are your survival, issues over these past number of years? This is completing now and moving to a new chapter the next 9 months. It's February 21st of 2021, when we'll have Sun and Venus come together again in the superior conjunction, right? It'll be another 18 months before we have Venus retrograde in the Sun. But incredibly potent. And secondarily, why this Venus transit is amazing is because on June 5th we have a lunar eclipse, right? So that Venus is incredibly energized because we have also an eclipse to punch it up a great big notch.
Wow. So what do you feel that... go ahead.
It's an incredible alignment. An eclipse is a more potent new moon or full moon, right?
Right.
It is. It's not a total eclipse. It's. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the eclipse. I think it's a prenumbral eclipse. Mm-hmm. And all of the lunar eclipses. We have 4 lunar eclipses this year. They're all penumbral eclipses that take place. So it's not a complete eclipse. It's just going to be transiting the outer part of Earth's shadow. But it is an incredibly potent eclipse taking place at 15 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini. And this eclipse is also in square to Mars, which is also 15 degrees. So it has, it's a pulse lunar eclipse, not a prenumbral. And so that is an incredibly potent eclipse, bringing in Pisces, Mars in Pisces. And I think that Pisces is an archetype of hidden potential, right? Hidden wealth. I wrote in my column for this month of May that Mars in Pisces takes us by stealth, right? So an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, takes that which is already on brew, but that has not met the light of day, and brings it into an illumination, or brings it into the full light of day where we can see it, right? At the time of this eclipse, Mars will still be behind Neptune. It has not... it's actually at the midpoint of Ceres and Neptune. For that eclipse, Ceres will be 10 Pisces, Mars will be 15 Pisces, Neptune will be 20. I don't have the exact date when Mars meets with Neptune, but it'll be later in the month. So we still have, and again, eclipses are eventful triggers, and they can trigger on the day, but they have a magnetic resonance. I've said this many times on the show, like plucking the string of a musical instrument. They are effective before and after the actual event. Again, I heard the station break, so...
All right. More to say on that after the break. We'll be right back.
Channel.com provides the best products and services to big corporations and government.
All right, we've come to our last segment here discussing the transits for late May, June. This just recent talk about the eclipse on June 5th, the first of three. The second will be on the 21st, the third on July 4th. But Mars and Pisces squaring this eclipse. Remember, Pisces connects to our immune system. So we'll have a lot of information by that first eclipse to see how the world is doing by reopening. It's just important to keep your immune system strong, very strong, and don't get lazy, and don't let your guard down right now. This is just really important with this eclipse activity.
Oh, yeah, and I'll just say the whole year as well.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and that, by the way, I looked it up on the break here. Mars will conjoin Neptune on the 12th of June, so I think that the eclipse and that Venus retrograde, the first half of June, we have quite a trigger here with the transits.
Exactly. So that can be like things getting a little bit out of control. Everyone wants to go to the beach. That could be a problem. Just in terms of the volume of people.
Please
so we also,
get safe.
Yeah, we also have Mercury retrograde. What is that? When is that? 13th, or what day of June is that?
Oh, yes. Mercury stations retrograde on June 17th to July 12th. And it turns retrograde about the 13 degrees of Cancer, and it's going to retrograde back to 5 degrees on July 12th. So again, that's memories and again matters with the family and issues around safety and self-consistency and all of that kind of stuff. So. We've got Mercury retrograde. Just as soon as Venus is about to end retrograde, we have Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. And Neptune retrograde.
And Neptune retrograde as well, too. Yes, Neptune.
Right after Venus moves direct, we have Neptune retrograde for 4 months.
On the 22nd, right? Yeah, joining all the rest of the planets that are in retrograde, right?
So just can't be in a hurry about anything. And let's talk about this eclipse on June 21st. It's going to be at the very beginning of Cancer, the sign of Cancer, new moon eclipse. So those of you that have anything early degree of water signs, you'll feel that, and well, everybody will. Anybody who has strong Cancerian charts, whether you have a packed fourth house or Cancer, planets in Cancer somewhere, you most likely feel these eclipses with greater emotion, I would say, and just. I know for myself, the Cancer rising, my own, as soon as I even knew what they were, I started tracking them, and I'm like, wow, it was kind of like one of those periods of preparation, but I will say that also very positive things can happen. It's like we can swing in either direction, like you said, depending on where I think earlier you said something like something that can come to light that you didn't see before is possible also. So what are your thoughts on this June 21st?
Well, so a lunar eclipse, as I said, something on Brew that comes into your full awareness, and that can come to fruition, or something that you didn't know, can end at that point in time. A solar eclipse is a new moon, and the solar eclipse, new moon, starts a new cycle. That new cycle is because something ends so something else can begin. And that 0 degrees, it's June 20th, 21st, depending on where you are, very late at night here on the West Coast. It'll be just 20 minutes before midnight on the 20th. 0 degrees, and in relationship, the sun and moon are in relationship to the North Node in a new phase. So this is starting a new home and family chapter, a new living with yourself chapter, a new way of self-preservation. Again, here that's the Cancer archetype, the search for, self-consistency. How do I create an even keel for myself here? Mercury will be retrograde at that time as well, too. So, again, key people, key circumstance, key event that's going to move that forward. And, it is pretty potent. Mundane astrologers will look at the solstices and eclipses to predict what the next quarter is about, in terms of that. So having a solar eclipse on the solstice is really a big deal for setting a new reality into play. And, Cancer has to do with the populace, with all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's quite a significant transit at that period of time. It's all about safety. It's all about security. What are those issues for you?
I'm this classic for even when I see things that are really intense. My Sagittarian nature has to find the things that I feel like will, offset some of the wild energy that might be on its way. And, of course, like I said, it does depend on how these particular planets are aspecting your personal chart. But Mars, for example, on the eclipse is in a very supportive position to Pluto and to Jupiter. And it's forming what we call a sextile. So this does allow you to secure your path in some way moving forward, secure a dream, a piece of the dream, to ground yourself in a direction, to know better where your soul is headed, to feel less all over the place about something. Information does help. So when we have information, regardless of what that information is, then we know better how to direct our lives. And so I do anchor myself in the trends that I feel are there to support me, or tell clients, remind them to be aware of the things that are in place. And as souls, we are all responsible for what we create, and we all attract whatever it is that we need to propel us forward on the path. So it's important, especially during an eclipse period, because it can be so emotionally sensitive, as we talk about the veil thinning between here and there. So many astrologers talk about that, to just experiencing the whole of being alive. It's more palpable, that experience emotionally. As we're more emotional in our journey, we're connected more deeply to our soul, and through extension to spirit and to God. And so it has been known to be a time when rapid evolution can occur. It can be a period where catalysts are, experienced by many, because it's time. That's basically what it's saying. So I love the fact that Mars is, while it's in a square to the nodal axis, we always see a little bit of pressure there, don't we? It is supportively aspecting this.
Yeah, and also, too, a really dynamic aspect of this June 20th eclipse is the fact that Saturn, which is retrograde, is at 0 degrees Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And in relationship to the Sun and Moon at 0 Cancer, that's an adjustment aspect. It's frictional, but in a positive way. So at this point you may say, I can't keep doing it that way. I think I need to try this.
Yeah.
So it gives that opportunity. And I know you and I will be back, before the end of June to discuss. But on the 30th of June, we will have the second of 3 conjunctions with Pluto and Jupiter in the sign of Capricorn. And this is a transit, I call it a seismic shift transit. April 5th and November 12th are the other exact alignments with this, and we have Pallas Athena in there as well, too. So the end of the month and through until the eclipse on the next eclipse, which is July 4th, the USA birthday, we have the final of the 3 eclipses for this season here. Very, very potent. So starting the month of June, from the end of May through the 28th of May through about the 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, the 8th, all the way through the 12th, we've got an intensified pocket of time with the transits being really stimulated. And again, at the end of the month from this June 20th through the last days of June and into the first week of July, another transit peak of energy to help you, to bridge you over to the next chapter, the next phase.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Again, Rose, always look forward to this, and we wish you a re-entry into the world in ways that support you safely and fully. So until next time, we will be back at the end of June for more. Namaste.